there, and welcome to the Fearless Artist Podcast, where we empower classical musicians to build their own thriving careers. I'm your host, Michelle Lynn, and together with Deanna Petre, we teach artists to conquer the entrepreneurial side of their careers and create the futures they want. We are two freelance classical musicians who have lived and worked in Europe for a decade, and together we started the Fearless Artist Mastermind, a coaching company created to teach classical musicians how to overcome fear and take action on building their dream careers. In each episode, we will explore the intersection of artistry and entrepreneurship, teaching you the fearless mindset with practical steps and strategies to build a sustainable career. Get ready to build your own artistic brand, find a supportive community of musicians so that you don't have to figure out everything alone, and earn a living that you deserve. We believe that you can be a thriving artist and not a starving one, and we are redefining what it means to be a classical musician in the modern era. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fearless Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Lynn. Today I'm honored to have on Dustin Boyer, who is the founder of Industry Plant. Hi.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. You're good. We can just jump right in. I mean, I was just saying right before we started recording, I've been following you for at least 5 years. I've loved your content. I love your passion, your enthusiasm, your rants. I feel like you've got a mission for the music world, and we've been taking it to the classical musicians, which is the majority of our listeners today. Because I think the classical music industry is 15 years behind what you guys are working on with your artists in terms of thinking like a brand, being an individual, direct to fan base, monetization, not just waiting for the manager to come in and save you, like actually going out there and being an entrepreneur. So I've just so appreciated what you do. So thank you. And thank you for being here today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me. And I'm gleeful at the idea that there's an audience in that world of the music industry that is interested in what I have to say. And I think you're right. Well, I don't know anything about them being behind, but it's like that in country music too. I'm doing a lot of country right now, and they're 5 years behind, right? So Right now they're doing things that 5 years ago the pop industry was like, yeah, we've been doing this. So I know that feeling of being behind.
If you say we've been doing this, what is this?
I mean, right now for country, it's building a brand around the thing that makes you competitive. Pop music's always been really good at this, but early in the TikTok days, a lot of pop musicians sort of figured out like, okay, what makes me interesting? Like, how can I stand out in, if there's a bin full of red apples, how can I be a green apple is the analogy I like to use. And pop's always been good at this, but they sort of looked at the content game and they're like, okay, people like this about me, I'm going to be this, but to the max, to the extreme. And country music's always kind of had an issue with that. Like if you look at the CMAs, half the guys show up in black cowboy hats, like they're all the same. And so the conversations we're having with the country world is, how do you stand out as a country dude? How do you compete? Or just a country artist, but country dudes in particular have a really hard time with this. And so we'll go through and look at the competition and we'll say, well, this thing about you, nobody else is doing. So let's make it a character out of this.
I love that. This is a perfect launching pad for classical musicians because classical musicians also only know how to brand themselves as their instrument. So I am a pianist or I'm a violinist. We all play the same rep, which makes it also more difficult to find that individual aspect. Because at least with pop or country, you're writing your own stuff. But with us, we've got a canon of repertoire and everyone's playing mostly the same thing. So when it comes to like that mindset of being an individual, what are some starting points that you work on with your artists?
Yeah. So one of the things, truly we talk to the artist and we try to find out what's unique. I don't like inventing things from scratch. So we'll sit down and we'll chat with the artist and we'll, try to uncover what makes them, what makes them interesting. We go through their story, and majority of the time we'll hone in on things that they never considered as like a value point. And that's how that's how we think about all of this too, is value points. Why would somebody be a fan of you and your brand, but also your music? What are the things that like people can say, oh, I like them because of this. But there's usually about 7 or 8 answers to that question, if not more. And then so what we do is then we take a competitive analysis. We go, okay, who's your contemporaries, or who do you want to be that you would be competing with? And we list those out and we go, what values do they have? And then we look and we go, oh, well, you know what? Like, you have this thing that nobody else has. It could be a story. It could be a look. It could be, a way that they make people feel. Now let's hone in on that. And we try to get like 2 or 3 of those. So then when we go into making content, we try to bring those things out, because then all of a sudden you get something new, which I think as a musician is the hardest thing to give, is people something new. I mean, I think that even the musicians are always trying to walk that fine line between inspired and derivative. That is I imagine in classical music, like you said earlier, like it's probably even harder. But I would ask the question, and forgive me, because this is probably the first time I've really thought about classical music in this way. So I might sound ignorant, but I do listen to classical music. And to me, the value is motivation, inspiration, focus. Like, those are things that I want from that music. I want to be inspired. I listen to a lot of classical to get me motivated. Not even like, I'm not talking about even just like I need something to listen to while I work. I feel insecure and I need something with a lot of energy. That's just me personally. I'm sure a lot of people listen to classical music to feel sad and want to feel like something deeper. But it's such an interesting genre because, it serves a lot of purposes outside of emotional. I think a lot of people listen to classical music because they do need to focus. I certainly do. But all that to say, I think from a branding standpoint, it'd be an interesting challenge because, like you said, it is a lot of the same songs. What would be some artists in the genre that you would say are kind of breaking new ground at the moment around classical music?
I mean, yeah, what you're saying about... Just to highlight,
turn the question on you, but
no,
okay,
I love this. Yeah, this is good. But when you say I listen to classical music to be focused or energized or energy shift, like you mentioned, or people want to be inspired, that's all great. But our challenge is that the music does that, and so we've been taught, like, you walk on stage and you are basically a blank canvas, and the music comes through you, and so the artists ourselves are not. It doesn't have to be us playing it; it could be anyone playing it. So finding that unique, that's why musicians have a resistance to this branding thing, because it's like, it's not about me, it's about this art that we've been taught that is so valuable to like kind of worship, because it is so important in our tradition as well that we've crafted this. So we've learned to play to this kind of perfectionistic standard. So bringing in this unique artist identity is also like very resistant for people, because they're like, well, it's not about me. I'm not supposed to be the one that it's talking about. We're supposed to be talking about Beethoven.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because at that point, all you have is the brand. Granted, how you perform it means everything, right? Like, I remember I had this one professor who talked about like the most proficient violinist he ever worked with. She was so perfect that you lost the humanity in the performance. And that's when I was in School of Music, I was vocals, and I feel like it's doubly so for vocals. Like, they're so adamant that like, you're not just singing the song, you're expressing the song. So, in the performance, there's that, but obviously that's a hard thing to sell if you are trying to connect with people digitally, because you really only get that live. Like, it's really hard to convey that. And it's like that in every genre. It's like, hey man, your performance of this song is amazing, but when I hit record, it loses something. But I think on the branding end, and I get the resistance, and by the way, I think every artist feels this way to a degree. It's like, let the music speak for itself, and that's fine. But then you have an artist who feels that way, but then is also building a brand that has a lot of value in it already. And so it's like, well, I like the music, but also this person is just really interesting, and here's why. And that's why I kind of asked the question, like, who are some contemporaries who seem to be breaking new ground? And if there's not, man, that's a whole world that hasn't been executed on.
I mean, I think there are like Yu Wang, for example, or there's Lucas and Arta Janssen. They're Dutch twin brothers, so they've really gone off this like blonde hair, shiny suit kind of vibe. They're also hilarious on socials, so I think they're really letting their personality kind of speak. Or like Misha Maisky, like as artists, we understand, like we get to know them, their personalities, we watch the documentaries and stuff. But for the average kind of normal listener to connect with them, or for the rest of us who aren't like the top 1% of the industry, building that unique brand, connecting with fans, that's like something that's really, new territory for us, I would say.
Yeah, it's, and when you show up on people's feeds and you're about to play classical music, what are the things that you're conveying immediately that is going to get people to stop and watch? And
that's our biggest struggle. And also like just even convincing classical musicians to post is one of my biggest, like I'm preaching every single day, like so I would love for you to also kind of delve into that, because that's where some of the mindset is specifically for listeners.
And that's the hardest. I mean, I've sat down with artists and had to talk them through it. I work with one band, and we've worked with them for the last 6 months. Well, I'll just say it's Alone Bellow, right? They've been around since the 2010s. And I was hanging out with the guitar player, and he was telling me about how the lead singer was really resistant to, in the same way that you just described. And I was like, really? Because he's posting all the time. I mean, we were doing a shoot yesterday, and he went live on his fan club, and I couldn't beg artists to do that. And I was like, he's so engaged. And it's like, well, yeah, it took years. But eventually, he did a few things, he gave it a shot, and then now all of a sudden he's seeing the success of it. And it's like, it's not any different than anything else an artist had to do to be successful. You go back in their early years was going and doing a bunch of YouTube videos, doing tastemaker stuff, go doing session videos, right? Before that, it was having to go do radio, early morning local television, right? There's always this thing that an artist has to do. And I think that I've been able to break through with artists by asking them the question of like, well, who managed your band before you had a manager? Well, me. Did you want to do that? No. Right? Like, who did your finances and taxes? Well, me, until I was able to just, have this guy help me. Yeah, that, because at the core of it, that's running a business. Right? Mm-hmm. Like when you're bootstrapping a business, you do the things you have to do until you can hire somebody else to do it. And that's the whole reason our company exists. It's like there are artists who do it themselves, build a career, and then they're like, now I can afford to get help on this. I think the difference is that there's always going to be a level of presence that fans require you to show up. Just like a live performance, if you go perform live, and you decide you're not going to talk to anybody after the show, and you're not going to go to the merch booth or whatever it is, there's an expectation. Fans want to engage with you. And it's the same thing digitally. Even though you have a team, there is still some expectation of you showing up digitally and having conversations with people. So unfortunately, that kind of never goes away, but it never goes away live either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm just thinking of the classical musicians I know who don't go talk to the audience after, because it's this whole mindset that we're coming up against, like breaking old boxes, I would say, of the music spoke for itself, and now he retreats to the dressing room, and it's all very mysterious and elusive, right? But I think that if you want to stand out in this society, you need to try and find this digital presence and contact with fans.
Yeah, and look, this is going to sound super nerdy, and I do go see, I see a lot of live music, and I sometimes see classical music, and my favorite music, and it's symphonic. I don't know if you call it classical. It's symphonic for sure. It's orchestral. Is the music from the games Final Fantasy. I don't even really play those games, but the music is on another level. So I went to, watch the Nashville Symphony play through this music last year, and all I wanted to do was meet the conductor, and I paid for that ticket, right? And I went and met him because I'm so impressed with the way he runs these bands. He shows up in these towns, and then he's working with these orchestras, and it's just, and so like even I think that if fans are going that now, if fans wanted the mystery, if they wanted the like, well, this is, I don't really care about that. I just want to hear the music, but that's not what they want. And that's the thing. It's like there's supply and demand. The people demand that they want to meet you and engage with you. And it's only going to get more in depth that way because AI, the dead internet content, it's going two ways. It's going the way of like, how can I output as much crap as possible to grab people's attention, and it's
Yeah.
disruption and it's spectacle, and people are going to get really tired of it really quickly. So they're going to be looking for, well, I want to know the artist. I want to know how they made this. I want to understand them at a deeper level because I don't have that anymore. It's all slop. That's why you see like big movies getting trashed while small independent films. I mean, A24 is brilliant at this, right? They're taking tiny directors and they're like, "What's your vision?" Right? And because they're seeing this demand for intimate experiences in art. And honestly, classical music is, and I think in a better position than it has been in quite a while, because what comes with that is everything niching down as well. I think that niches are more powerful than they used to be, and people are willing to spend more money on niches, including classical music.
Oh, that's interesting. I know that there are a lot of classical music producers who would love to hear you say that because, ticket sales for us is a grind. It's hard to get people to come out, but I think it's because it's a lack of clarity on who's it for and why should they come. I don't know if you've heard of candlelight concerts. They have
Yes.
concerts. Yeah, okay. So I play for them here in France and Belgium, and they've really learned how to sell this experience. So
Yes.
the music is part of it, of course, but it's really about this, wow venue and jaw-dropping effects when you come in, and the candles are so beautiful, and you can get the Polaroid picture after, and they sell candles at the door for merch, and it's really become this thing, not just come here, a string quartet, play Vivaldi. So that's been an interesting thing for me to see the marketing side of that, and they're doing super well. They're global everywhere. They've been going strong for 5 years. So yeah, do you have thoughts on making it more about the experience or the brand rather than just the music?
Well, and it's tough to sell the music because they've heard it, right? And they're aware of it, and it's a nuanced thing. It's like, here's our approach to it. Here's how we interpret it. Here's how we make it exciting. That's hard to sell, but the experience thing. And by the way, the experience thing is happening all across live music. I just had this conversation last night with somebody where we were talking about how arena shows are selling at a higher price and they're selling out, while mid-level and smaller shows are not doing well. And it's, of my opinion, is because these massive arena shows have sold an experience. You're not going to see Jelly Roll. You're seeing Jelly Roll and his friends, and it's a whole party, and it's a thing that like you can't ever get anywhere else. And they're sucking up all the money. And the mid-level shows haven't caught up to that. They're still thinking like, I'm first of three, right? Like I'm headlining and I've got this guy on tour with me and here's my 10 songs. I'll go back to the Lone Bellow. They just played the Ryman, and their show, they're changing it into that. It's a hugely dynamic thing that ebbs and moves. It goes through genres. It feels like church at one moment and a rock show from the 50s in the next. And when people, they have 300,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, yet they're selling out 1,500 cap rooms, because now it's not about passive listenership and massive streams. It's about a live experience that is unique to them that people are talking about. And I think classical music, it's cool to hear about that candlelight thing because that's brilliant. I think that's exactly how you have to do it.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I run a small chamber music series, and I've been trying to think about this experience. Like, how can you invite people to be like, you're here, then more just sit passively and listen? But also because we've been trained to put so much emphasis on the quality of the music and the level of playing, it's hard to rewire your mind and think like, oh, I'm giving a show. Like it's a very different approach, I think.
Yeah, that's really intriguing to me. This is very interesting conversation because, again, I haven't thought about classical music like this. And I think the same rules apply, but certainly I do think that niches rule right now. And I'm not saying that like you can go be an arena act as a classical music. I'm just saying that people are spending their money on niches. Like they really are invested. I also think they're into it because it says something about them that they want to express to the world. People have always used music as a way to like express their own personality, but I definitely think that, like, you know, especially with the excitement around data that Spotify Wrapped has created, where we're all sitting around and you get this, you know, there's awards. I don't know if you tried the Spotify party thing. We did it on the pod yesterday. But it sort of shows like, ooh, who has the most unique taste, right? Who listened to the rarest band? It was a lot of that. And there was a point of pride in that. You know, and I think that's probably true for people who listen to classical music.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, real quick, I just want to say that if you are struggling to post on Instagram, first of all, you are not alone. Most musicians are sitting there scrolling and not knowing what they would actually post about. Second of all, if that's you, then I have a free gift for you. It is our free guide, 10 golden rules to posting on Instagram as a classical musician. If you follow these 10 rules, you will grow, you will get more followers, you will get more views, you will know what hashtags to use, you will write captions that are interesting, and you will build an audience. And guess what a bigger audience gives you? More concerts. That's right, everybody. So all you need to do is DM us on Instagram at the Fearless Artist Mastermind. Just write golden and we will send you our free guide. Hope you love it, and thanks for listening. Coming back to the arena shows in classical music, I have to say Hans Zimmer is doing it very well. He's currently on a stadium tour across Europe, and I saw his show in Dusseldorf last month. Are you a Hans Zimmer fan?
I am.
Okay.
I don't know if my friend of mine did marketing for him
last
year. She might still be doing his marketing. I have to follow up.
Okay, well, they're doing a great job.
She reached out to me earlier this year, and she's like, can you help me, or last year, and she was like, can you help me with like some marketing stuff? And I kind of told her, I was like, hey, I'm exiting my company. Like, no. And I still think about that, like, because I love him. I think he's fantastic.
Okay, that we have to come back to that. But anyway, a good friend of mine is now his new flute player on tour, so I got to go see them, and you're right about the experience. Like, they have, you know, the colors and the vibrance, and there's the one point where there's like synthesizer bass shoots through the whole arena and you can like feel it vibrating in your very core. And then they have a ballerina come down and she's covered in this kind of diamond sequency thing.
Oh my
and she
God.
starts doing flips in the air as you're watching. So I was realizing as I was in there, like, this is so much more than just the music. And also, like, he's a film composer mostly. So usually the music is like an afterthought after the images. So it's cool to how they've like elevated it to this thing where it's now this whole show and experience.
Does he play a lot of his movie music?
Yeah, the whole show was, you know, going through the different films. So Gladiator, Lion King, Pirates. When they did Pirates, they all had pirate flags. It was awesome.
And it's funny because I have noticed, you know, it's funny. Classical music is kind of reminding me of Legos. You know, there's building blocks, but there's franchises, right? Like there's getting people. I mean, everything that I've been. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place here, but Legos has done this thing where they're like, well, we're selling Legos, but what if we franchise it to Harry Potter and all these things people know and love? And now that I think about it, every single classical thing, I was talking about Final Fantasy earlier, but we did and went one for Harry Potter. We did one for, I think it was Frozen. With my girls, like I've seen everything I've seen has been around that music, and so that's a clever way. I never really thought about them doing it that way.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is also very popular, and they're screening the film as the orchestra plays live, which is really great to get people in the doors. Because the idea, I mean, I think classical music is like, okay, if we do some more popular music, let's say like film stuff, then people get through the theater and they get over that speed bump of elitism. Because I think that's really the hang up with classical music. So it's like, let's get them in the theater so they can see that there's no shame. They feel comfortable. I talked to Audrey Bergauer on the podcast, and she talks all about how to get audiences to come back, because 90% of people who come to a classical music concert apparently never return because there's things like mild shaming. For example, somebody claps after a movement. You're typically not supposed to do that. So then they'll clap, and then everyone else gives them the, you know, side eye. So then they're like, oh, I don't belong here. So there's all these like, or if they show up in like a t-shirt and jeans, it's like, you were supposed to dress up, you don't belong. So there's all these signals that are being sent to newcomers for new music that we need to try and eliminate if we want to sell more tickets to our concerts.
Yeah, and that kind of sucks because, I mean, I get it. I went to school of music, and we would have to go see like 2 shows a week or whatever it was. And I remember there would always be somebody clapping, and I'm sure that almost most classical musicians probably went to the School of Music, and that elitism really, I think, starts there. I remember that. And I remember even, I did it for about 3 years before I decided I wanted to be in the business of music. And I remember it being a very big turnoff, even just as a musician, of just being like, why can't it be this? Like, why does it have to be so, melancholy sometimes, the way you approach it instead of joyful? So I love to hear that that's being thought about actively.
Yeah. I would love for you to talk about what you did maybe at Venture and now what you're now doing with Industry Plant.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, I was at an agency for about 6 years called Venture Music. And when I joined in 2019, I was a manager, and they were wanting to make the shift. I was wanting to make the shift. And I spent a lot of time there building out systems around marketing, advertising, creative, shooting, editing, from the ground up. And I'm somebody who doesn't rest. I don't like to be like, and now we did it. And so I got to this point, and there's a lot of reasons why I left. And I talked about some of them on like a video I did. But I had been sitting around, and last year I was working on a book, and I really want to write a book about the psychology of like discovering music. And when I started when you're writing something, you have to really analyze. You can't bullshit your way through it. Like I get on, I talk for a minute and a half on video, and I can pretty much, hit surface level. But when you go deep, it's like, okay, but why does somebody listen? So I went really deep, and I learned a lot. I analyzed, we had a huge success in Zach Top. We worked with him from 20,000 monthly listeners to 8 million. And I analyzed him. I studied him like a book, and I came to a lot of really great conclusions. But the problem is I had kind of built this company in a way that nobody wanted to go deeper. I was really annoying people, to say the least, because I would go into these creative meetings and it'd be like, there's this, and then there's this. I wanted to create a whole branding department. I wanted to create like a deeper level. And I think with the success of Zach Top, we had 50 clients. The owner, the majority owner, he just saw all this money coming in and was like, why do we need to spend more time and money? And to a degree, he's kind of right. Like, if that's the system that he wanted to build, he had done it. He had, the work was coming. It was effortless. We were churning out stuff that was fine. But I was bored because I wanted to go deeper and I wanted to explore. And even my wife was like, you're doing well. You barely have to work at this point. Like, you're making content, you're doing the things that you love. And I was like, but I'm not. I have a need to go deeper, and I don't have a need to make money. Not that I'm not well off by any means. I'm not, I need to make money like all of us, but I have I think musicians can relate to this. It's like, there's a guitar in the corner. Are you going to pick it up? Your instrument's in the corner. Your arm just wants to reach for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I feel about this studying of the psychology of a listener and a fan. And it sounds so nerdy because it's not. I wish it was exciting. Like, I wish I felt that way about music. That's why I quit music. I would get more excited. I'd go to band practice in a smelly room with 4 guys. And all I would think about is leaving that room and going to work on the marketing and the branding and all this stuff.
Oh my gosh, we need people like you. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, no, my dad always told me, my dad owned an animal crematory, and a very successful one.
Oof.
Which it's like, who does that? And he always taught me, he's like, hey, if you do the boring thing really well, because nobody wants to do the boring thing. And I was like, but to me, it's not boring. To me,
yeah, to you light up when you talk about it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, look, there's nothing more fun than when something clicks with an audience, and it's like a rocket ship that you can't control, because once you hit go and something takes off, you're just trying to play catch up, and it's the most fun ever. It's like that when all the work comes together. But yeah, so I was at this point where I saw something more interesting in my future. Not that, and also, I had built helped build this company that I owned a very small part of, and I was putting in a lot of work, and I was like, I kind of want to do that for myself. I want to, experience the joy of building something from scratch on my own that I own, and a team that, feels like they look towards me to be like, what's next? Like, that, to me, that was really exciting too. So yeah, in June we left, and we I was fortunate enough that I had some people I knew who were ready to do something else too. And we started in June. We had clients right away. We're in Nashville, so the country work came to us, although a lot of us are rock fans, honestly, there. And our obsession has been, why does somebody hit play for the first time? And then subsequently, why does somebody become a fan? And so we sit down 3-4 times a week and we just listen to music. And we go, why would somebody like this song? Or we watch content. We're like, why would somebody stop watching this piece of content and go and listen to the song that they're hearing in this content? And that's an important distinction of like, why would somebody stop to watch your content? No, why would somebody then leave that platform to add your song? And that's been my obsession for the last 6 months. It's what I think about. I've got a creative director who she messages me because I've got her thinking about it all the time. And then we're trying to figure out how to make it practical, because I think the thing we're running into is, hey, artists, people love your music because they love to just be in their emotions. Your songs make them sad in a good way. It's cathartic. Cool. What the hell do I do with that piece of information? I get it, right? So that's the next thing. It's like, how do you make that? And we know how to make it practical because we've been doing it. But we had one artist be like, you're telling me this, but like, I don't know how to actually do this on my own. And we're like, like that's okay. Because the hard part of this is that we go and shoot content for artists. But like you said, artists have to do these things on their own at some point. And I think trying to teach them and understand, like, why would somebody listen to your music and how do you apply that to your marketing efforts, not even just in content. And going back to the candlelight thing, why would somebody go to this show? Well, because it's an experience and you have to show that experience, right? There's a path to the marketing where you can showcase that. But when you talk about psychology, when you talk about emotions, how do you show that? You know, that's where there's a lot of creative talent involved, because it's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this leads me to the next question of, for those of us who are posting, what is the link? And I know you talked about this in a recent post, of the hook of the content needs to be the same reason of the hook of the song. So do you have anything around how we can bridge the gap between like a social following to getting them on the Spotify or the monthly listeners?
Well, I will say, for anybody who's had any success, like on any post in particular, and you have engagement, the first thing I would do is go stare at that engagement and write down everything that's more meaningful than an emoji, right? Fire emoji, can't get anything from that. Somebody saying, wow, this really reminds me of when my mom took me out to see music when I was a kid, and I love this about it. Write that down, because they're telling you this is real time.
This is
analytics.
Message mining. Why did I not think of this?
Message mining. Oh, I like that. I've never thought of that phrase. My brother works in marketing as well, but he does like what do you do when you sit in a room and everybody tastes something? I can't think of the name of what he does.
Like a taste testing?
Yeah, but he does. It's a certain word for. Why can't I think of it? But the idea is that you're putting things out there and you're getting a response and you're using that as data. And that's and a lot of artists who have had success, they're not message mining. Message mining is I'm going to steal that from you if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
That's really good.
That's so smart, because I've had so many people comment like, oh, I loved this piece. It made me feel. And I never thought to use that as a hook. Like if you want, but then what's the bridge? So if you want to feel also warm and fuzzy, come listen to my song.
That's where I don't know. You have to say, I mean, a lot of times if artists are like, I don't know how to write a hook from what this person's saying, I'm like, just reply to it and use it as the hook. That's the easiest way to do it. And then build from there. I had one artist he's a Native American. He does country music. And there's a lot of like, the story of being a Native American in 21st century America. And he gets a lot of comments, but he never talks about it. And I'm like, just start using the comments and then you'll get more people talking about it. And then honestly, and this is one way, I'm not a big AI guy, but I use it as a tool for artists who struggle with doing things that are outside their world, like writing copy or hooks. So let's say you have a hook do really well, or somebody says something and you're like, cool, can you give me like 10 other ideas like this? And usually they're not even that great, but it gives you kernels of other ideas of being like, oh, I can use this as a hook. But here's the real thing. Like the hook is a tough thing, because the easiest thing to do is to make it a spectacle, make it something that just grabs people's attention, whether it's related to the music or not. And it works. And if you can get that to be big enough, if you reach millions of people, you will then reach people who like the music. So that's one way to do it. I like the hard path though. I like when the hook and the thing that you're grabbing. And by the way, the hook doesn't always have to be a verbal hook. There are visual hooks. There are sonic hooks. Hud Dog, if anybody listens to country who's listening to this podcast, he's a country artist and he's got a audio hook that is him bending the guitar string, and it's so memorable. And it's the greatest audio hook this year I've encountered. So it doesn't always have to be something like, I gotta imagine in classical music, audio hooks are probably so underutilized because there's so many moments in classical music. I think Lindsey Sterling, has used this for years. Her using audio hooks has been a thing since 2005 when she started. If the hard thing being make that hook about the music, that to me is the best route to go. And it doesn't work 90% of the time, but that 10% of the time it does work and it reaches people, it actually produces listenership and fans. That's why it's important, because God, there's nothing more depressing than having a piece of content go off and be like, everybody, this has 2 million views. Why is nobody listening to the song? Like that.
So is the answer because the hook didn't bridge them to the platform, the listening platform?
100%. 100%.
So what strategies have you seen that are compelling enough to get people to leave the app, TikTok, Instagram, and get onto the listening platform?
Again, it goes back to the song values, right? Like, what is this messaging around the song is a lot. I work in country, so it's 90% that. If that messaging is like, do you treat your significant other better than you treat yourself? That's one I always like to really lean on, because it's like, yes, that's me. And then you hear the song, I love this song, I'm going to go at it. Or like, even more on a utility base. Like if I was working with a classical musician, and I hope
remember instrumental, so no lyrics.
Yeah, no, it's instrumental. Yeah. When I work with I'll say this: when I work with instrumental music, I think about utility. I think about, where is somebody going to be listening to this and why, right? And how can we display that in the content? Because if you display it in the content, it tells people, this is how you listen to my music. So if I come across something and it's somebody driving, for example, and just jamming out to a song, and it's showing them like singing along, I'm like, oh, I like this song, I'll add it to my driving playlist, right? Because that's how people consume things. When they discover music, they compartmentalize it into their next need, right? Mm-hmm. Where am I going to be listening to music next? Oh, while I'm studying, right? While I'm driving, while I'm working out, right? Or I'm going to a party. I want to show this. I want to put this in my party playlist. So sometimes just simply visually showing them how to use your music. That's why all the lo-fi music blew up, because every single piece of content around lo-fi was somebody literally listening to lo-fi music during work, during gaming. Like that's right. It's, and I don't think they did it on purpose. It's so brilliant in its subtlety. And I would explore that outside of just the performance. Like, cool, you're performing. And by the way, performing classical music, it takes a lot of talent. Showcase that talent. People love to watch talent. That's a spectacle to them. They're like, that's incredible that you did that. So when you're performing, show the performance. Show your fingers moving on a piano or moving the string. Like, go over the top. Show the part of the most difficult part. Yes, it feels shallow. Yes, it's all spectacle. But that's to get somebody through the door. People need something to get through the door, like you said earlier. Like, lower that burden and then let them explore. Because once they get in the door and they start to explore, then you open up your world to them.
Mm-hmm. I love all of this. I just released my first album last week, so I'm really trying to think of strategies to promote. And somebody said, oh, I'm going to fall asleep to your Ravel. So now I'm like, okay, I should make a bunch of videos of me sleeping.
Thanks. Like, what do you?
in a really nice way. Like, it's a beautiful, soothing piece. So maybe something around sleeplessness or whatever. No, I love this. Can you talk about like why numbers are so important? Like, what does it change if you wake up and you've got 500,000 monthly listeners versus like for a classical musician. Most classical musicians I find on Spotify have less than 1,000. You know, like the lesser than sign. You know, the little sign of shame.
Oh, it's brutal. Well, now on Spotify, you're not even getting paid for less than 1,000. So the sting is, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I understand the sting of that. You know, numbers are an interesting thing because for the most part, I've mentioned this earlier when just talking about a niche altogether, is that like you could be entirely successful making money live or selling merchandise and building an SMS or an email and still have, 5,000 monthly listeners. I've seen it done in niche genres. So the numbers to me, they're sort of misleading in some ways. They're a symptom of success, not what you're aiming for. So it's difficult because they are important in the sense of like, one, your temperament and a measure of your success and how you feel about things and knowing people are listening. But they are not the end game. They are like the top of the funnel, the thing that indicates that your top of funnel is effective. The real question is, if you have 10,000 monthly listeners, have you done anything to engage those 10,000 listeners? Because most artists don't even think about that until they're like at 200,000. And even then, I mean, I talk with teams all the time that have 500,000 monthly listeners. And I was like, what are you guys doing on the email front? And they're always ashamed. They're always like, nothing. We haven't sent any emails out in like 2 years. And I'm like, don't be ashamed, because nobody does. Even the labels, they're all ashamed because and they're like, we know everybody's beating us at that. I'm like, no, nobody is. You have millions of streams a month and you're not doing it. But you could start so early where you're like, what do I want to do? Well, I want to play Atlanta, Georgia, right? Okay. Do I have any listeners from Atlanta, Georgia? Could I run an ad to Atlanta, Georgia and collect some emails and start to engage with people at a deep level? Am I a good like writer? Maybe I'll start a Substack and bring people over to Substack and write to them and include my writing, my brand around writing with my branding around playing music, or maybe a Patreon. Like go deeper sooner, especially in a niche. If you're a pop artist, this is much harder and you need those numbers. But as a classical, any niche, really outside of country, pop, I would even say it's true of country, but really pop and our rap are the only genres where this is very difficult to do early on.
Can you talk more about how to capture your monthly listeners? Because to me, those are numbers. I don't have access to who those people are. So I've got my Instagram following, but I'm at, 20,000 monthly listeners. I don't know where they're coming from.
Well, and this part sucks because this is usually where I get technical and everybody goes, well, I don't know how to do that. And I get that. But a lot of it is on the back end of the data side. So if you have people, meta ads are the best way to do this. If you're posting on Instagram and you have a following, setting up an ad to retarget them and having a really great incentive to sign up for your email list, that is the best way to do it. Yes, you have to go listen to Andrew, who I do the podcast with, Andrew Southworth, and he
4 cents, my 4 cents.
Yes, but he teaches essentially for free on his YouTube how to run meta ads, and he's everything he does is absolutely correct. So if you want to learn how to do it and be like, you know what, I'm going to do this, you can set it up one and done. Like you can set up, I'm going to run an evergreen ad campaign where I'm retargeting everybody who engages with my Instagram to say like, hey, I've got this song. I'm not going to put it out, but if you want to hear it, sign up for my email list. And you just run that forever. I've run those for years, and they'll drive, we can spend $100 and drive like 30 or 40 email signups. If we know we're going to go on tour, we target those cities and we just drive signups from those cities. And then we turn around and go, hey, we're doing, pre-sales for our tickets, buy one, get one, or not. Don't even offer a discount, just sell them. Right. So to me, that is,
oh man, like segmenting your email campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's work and it's like actual real marketing, right? Over like just posting content. But you're going to get closer to success that way in a niche than you are just posting video after video after video. I say all this knowing that like I run an entire creative agency that works 5 people work 40 hours a week to accomplish this. It is a real job, but so is the plumber has to do it. The landscaper every business has to do this. This is not unique to artists. And so the sooner artists realize, oh, if I want to make money from this, I have to treat it like a normal business, the sooner you get to like overcoming those hurdles and figuring out, okay, how can I accomplish this? And what can I leave? And this is the important part. What can I leave on the table and just focus on, I'm going to make content. I'm going to build an email list. That's what I'm going to do for 6 months this year. What am I going to do in the second month? Like it's called signal, is entrepreneurs like this idea of signal. Like your signal only has so much capacity. Stop spreading yourself thin. Focus on 2 things, do those 2 things in marketing and be done. Don't try to do it all.
That's amazing. That was my next question. Like, where do we actually focus on? So if it's the content, but for me, it's also about, I could spend all day answering DMs, like multiple languages of like talking to people to make them feel.
That's a good thing to do too. That's a great thing to do because you're building your community. You're getting around the email thing, right? The only thing that sucks about that is you don't own it. And that's the crappy part about running any of these things on other platforms. But you own the emails. But that's the thing. It's like, and look, maybe 3 months next year, you don't do any of that and you just focus on, getting into the studio, right? Your signal can change depending on your goals. But you got to figure out what you want to achieve. And then what are the things that are going to get you there quicker.
What point does a DIY musician need to say, like, I need to work with a marketing agency?
When you have the money to. I mean, look, if you're earning, let's say like things are going fairly well and you're like, hey, I'm making like maybe like $30,000 or $40,000 a year on my music. How could I spend money to make money, right? Who makes the most sense to hire? Because it's not always marketing, right? It could be, and again, I don't know the classical world as much, but it could be press. I'm not a big press guy, but it depends on the press. It could be a manager to help run some things. Sometimes managers are packaged in with marketing, right? That sometimes they come with some marketing skill sets that you can leverage. So it depends on what you're trying to do and your budget, but it's like any business. Like right now I run a business, I make X amount of dollars, I'm looking at who do I need to hire next year? And it's based off of my signal. Like right now I'm spending a lot of time doing things that I could hand off so I can spend time on things that only I can do. And that's really the goal of every entrepreneur. What are the things that only you can do and who can you hire to hand off the stuff that somebody else can do? Yeah,
so good. You mentioned monetization. Where's the money coming from primarily? Because it's not streams.
It's not streams. It could be streams. Okay. But even when it is, like I have an artist that's blowing up that I know, I don't work with them, but I know her. And it's like, this is amazing. We're not going to get paid for 3 more months. Right. Like, yeah, I'm still broke today, even though this song gets 1 million streams a day. I'll be honest with you. This is a blind spot with classical music. In country, I try to get to merchandise as quickly as possible. I try to build like a funnel that allows me to run a $100 ad that produces $500 in merch sales that I run all of the time. That's the 5x ratio on merch. I would think for a classical musician, your potential fans are mostly interested in you as a virtuoso. I think that's what's interesting to me. When I speak to, a violinist, I'm just astounded at their talent and their dedication. And so what they have to say and how they engage with me makes me feel special. So I think apps like Substack and Patreon, where you create a subscription, I think that that's better than a merch because your brand, especially early on, buying into a brand is hard, but connecting with people and supporting people at $5 a month, that ramps up really quickly. I have artists that start those pretty early and they're like, I'm making $2,000 a month just off of 100 people. And they're all fine with this. Now, don't underserve them. You've got to live in that fan club, that Patreon, whatever it is. Yeah. But that I think is the most accessible way to make money.
That's so interesting. Do you equate Patreon with the Instagram subscribers? Are they on the same level of funnel for you?
Yes. And that's another good point because I have one buddy of mine who treats it's TikTok Live the same way, where again, I kind of hate it because I don't like Meta owning or TikTok owning data, but there is a world too where I can easily imagine a musician, a classical musician, going live on TikTok and taking requests.
Yep.
This is how this artist makes majority of his money. He'll go live and he makes probably like 10 or 12 grand a month, and he doesn't have a huge audience at all. Like he
But
just
people
goes
giving
live.
gifts to him on TikTok.
They make requests, they give gifts,
Okay.
but he's live. He's live a lot, like 5
Okay.
days a week. He 3
Holy.
hours a day. Like
Okay,
he
okay.
treats it like a job.
Yeah.
And he's building his audience. His numbers are fantastic. And a year ago, he was in a completely different place because now he spends all of his time and all of his money building his business. So there are, Instagram subscribers is another way
I have
to
6.
do it. You have 6.
I don't know. I don't know how to grow them.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't used that yet. But so I don't have a lot of advice on how to do that in particular. The live thing I like a lot. I've seen a lot of bands through COVID. Halocene was a metal band that I used to work with, and they played live. And then they, over COVID, were like, let's do Twitch. And now it's just, the lead singer and her husband, and they go on Twitch, 5 days a week, and that's their job. And they make really good money. That is the stage lately. But there are so many revenue streams through social media. But as an artist, like if an artist comes to me and it was like, do this for me, I'm like, like you have to be the one. Like you cannot hire a team to do this for you. You have to be engaged at a level because you're driving a community. That's really, like, anybody who watches people live online, it is community. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not driving that personally, then you're missing it.
So there's a level of ownership that classical musicians need to take to say, yes, I'm going to let myself be seen and be the face of this thing.
Yes. Just and look, their mystery is done. Like there is no, I mean, you look at, I did this whole thing about Billie Eilish earlier this year. I did like a case study where I compared her to her predecessors in like the 80s and the 90s and 2000s, where like even her at the top of her game is nowhere near as mysterious as John Mayer was at the beginning of his career, like even 25 years ago. You can't be. I mean, every year Billie Eilish does that variety thing where she gives her update, right, on like her career. That's what people want right now. And they've wanted it for the last 10 years, if not longer. And so you got to get over it. And you might say, well, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to do it. Well, there's somebody who does care. And I hate to always be like this competitive guy, but it is true. Like you're competing with noise, and you're competing with people who want something or who realize people want something and they're willing to give it, and you're not. That's supply and demand. That's business. I hate to be so like, suck the fun out of all of it, but that's what you got to do if you want it to be a business.
Yeah. I know you have a hard stop, so I want to respect your time. Last
I actually don't have a clock in front of me, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah. If you had to launch a classical artist tomorrow, what are you focusing on?
After this conversation, because I had not given it a lot of thought, after this conversation, live. I actually think that that's the best way. It depends on what they're into. Like if they were also very much into writing a lot, I actually think that, and I keep going back to that, but I think people who are interested in classical music are also the kind of people who love to read very insightful and interesting things. But I would 100% be like, you're going to perform live and you're going to talk to people on the camera, because nobody in classical music is doing that. I'm on lives all the time. I do not see that. And I think that would be, people would be like, oh, this is awesome. Also, not for nothing, again, it is about the listener and their story, and you're giving them access to feel, I like classical music, right? There is a superiority to that.
We gotta lean into that.
Yeah, like that is, look, like people who don't create take your creations as part of their personality. That's why Suno and AI all kind of suck, because now they're just doing it themselves instead of going to the artist. But it's hard to understand that as a creative person, that they take ownership of you and your music in the same way that you also do. It's very bizarre. But you got to lean into that. So live, 100%.
Okay, amazing. This has been so insightful. I could go for hours. Thank you so much, Dustin, for your time.
I could too. I enjoyed this one. Was good because I haven't thought about classical music, and it was sort of interesting and challenging to talk about.
Okay, great, because we need all the help we can get.
Yeah.
So, how can people find you? How can we follow you?
Industry Plant. We are Industry Plant. Dustin the Industry Plant. If you Google Industry Plant, if you Google Industry Plant, you're probably going to be like getting a lot of what is Industry Plant. But yeah, you'll find me, Dustin the Industry Plant.
Perfect. We'll tag everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks everybody for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Fearless Artist Podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to share this podcast with a friend. To join our membership or one of our coaching programs, visit our website at thefearlessartistmastermind.com. This episode was produced by Pokey Huang at phMediaStudios in New York City. We're Deanna and Michelle, encouraging you to create your own opportunities and to go after what you want. You have what it takes to build the career of your dreams. Until next time, be fearless.